You're listening to the Save the Date podcast, where we talk all things weddings, jewellery and romance. With love from Cullen Jewellery.
Hello and welcome back to the Save the Date podcast. I'm Sheridan.
And I'm Juliette, and we are so happy you're here.
Today we are giving you our top 5 reminders for the wedding planning process. And we're also going to go into, if you follow our socials, we did some polls on our stories and just basically all about your wedding planning processes and experiences. So we're going to get into that after our 5 reminders.
So let's get straight into it.
Okay. Reminder number 1, you are not getting married for social media or anybody else for that matter.
It's about you.
Yes.
It's the one day you're allowed to be selfish.
Yeah.
Be selfish.
Yeah. I feel like when you're wedding planning, it can be really easy to fall into a trap of worrying about what everyone else is thinking. But like you said, it's about you. So you have to kind of like try and put those opinions to the side and just do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and I think especially with the whole social media thing as well, I feel like what you see online a lot these days is these massive glamorized weddings, which in reality would actually cost an absolute bomb.
Yeah.
And it's not realistic for 90% of people. So it's like, don't feel as though you have to compete with that in a way.
Yeah.
And don't let that make you feel like your wedding isn't good because it's not this massive, extravagant, expensive thing.
Yeah. And I feel like also in this day and age, like sharing your life on social media, and I guess especially for us too, like we're content creators in a way, like, you know, you do socials for Cullen and you do your socials as well. And like, I have 200 followers, but I do mine too.
We're getting there. Follow us.
But it can it can feel like you need to post everything online and you can kind of get like worried about what these random people are going to think, or is this video going to like perform well on my TikTok account? And like, that does not matter.
No.
Like, when you're old and grey and withering in your bed next to your partner.
And wrinkly.
And wrinkly, yeah. You're not going to be like, oh, my wedding video didn't go viral on TikTok. If anything, if that's like your thought, you'll look back when you're that age being like,
it's not just be close-minded.
That's very true.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, at that age, you'll probably be like, still posting your
nighttime
little videos.
routine.
Oh my God.
Day in the life of an 84-year-old.
I would honestly, I want to see that.
So interesting.
I want to see that. Where are the retired content creators? I want to be in that niche. That's really funny, but yes.
In all seriousness.
In all seriousness, when you're at that age, looking back on your life, you, if anything, are going to feel more down about it if you're like in this planning process worried about what your wedding is going to look like on a social media feed and, you know, what random people are going to think about it.
Yeah.
Because in reality, like, yes, weddings are a big thing on social media, but your wedding does not need to be featured in like Vogue.
No.
As nice as it would be.
Yeah.
It's like, that is not the be all and end all.
No. And like those little tiny private weddings can be equally, or they are equally as perfect as these massive extravagant weddings.
Yep.
There's no one size fits all, or, you know, it's all about you.
Yeah. And
having
also,
fun.
even if you do like want to share your wedding online, you don't have to have this big extravagant wedding like you said. Your like smaller wedding that is more tailored to you and your partner will be just as beautiful in pictures. So,
and like, honestly, those kind of weddings, you have way more fun.
Yeah.
No one's worried about like, you're just dancing and having fun.
Yeah.
No one's worried about.
On that note,
friendly.
actually, I'm curious, would you have a content creator
Oh, at my wedding?
at your wedding?
I don't know. Because like I think definitely that content.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have that content, but like in reality, like, is it worth it? I don't know. I'm unsure.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same about it because that was like, I mean, maybe it was a thing and I just was clueless, but I never saw that as an option for our wedding, and I don't think I would have done it because like you said, they're nice videos, and like, don't get me wrong, when I see people's videos from their weddings that are done by just like a content creator on an iPhone, I'm like, that is so cool that you can have those memories of the day like
straight away
and just so raw as well. But yeah, I don't know if I would pay for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I guess it's just one of those things that is a lot of money that adds to your budget when you're already spending so much that like if you're having a videographer, for example, like are you going to get that much extra value out of having a content creator?
Yeah. And like, I feel like, I mean, not so much maybe beforehand and like before the ceremony and during the ceremony and stuff, but definitely by the reception, most people are filming you anyway. So you've got those videos, and you just like the next day or the next week, you just ask around and be like, send me everything you got. Like, because most of the time people take photos of you anyway. So you do have a lot of that kind of organic content.
Candid kind of,
candid. But yeah, I guess I can see why someone would do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know. I haven't actually thought too much about it.
Yeah. See, I also feel like I like it because I like consuming that content. But that content is coming from someone who wants to share their life. So I don't know if it would necessarily provide that much value to someone who isn't posting. Necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting take.
Yes.
So reminder number 2 is don't compare your wedding to somebody else's.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you have no idea like what's actually gone on in the background of a celebrity wedding or an influencer wedding. And like a lot of the times there's a lot more in it than you think.
Yeah.
Like I was actually talking to one of the girls today about when I was planning my wedding, and I was like, I really did the bare minimum. And like, for example, like I did the bare minimum for my wedding, and I'm biased, but I think that my wedding was beautiful.
Yeah.
And like, but someone might look at the photos of my wedding and be like, oh my gosh, like they planned so much, they did this and they did that. But like, that's not the reality.
Yeah.
So you can't like compare the two, because it's just, unless you're literally beside that person while they're planning their entire wedding and you see it like pan out from planning to execution on the day, you have no idea.
Yeah. What actually... Yeah, and just I feel like in general, like just you just never know the situation of someone else, because it's like maybe you and your partner are paying for everything yourself, but then you're looking at this other couple that were influencers who posted their wedding and it's all extravagant and stuff, but like maybe they had parents paying for their wedding or contributing a large amount of money to their wedding, so it's like which would have made it a lot easier on the couple to be able to afford all of that. Or maybe being an influencer, maybe they got a lot of stuff for free because they're tagging the brands. You have literally no idea. So
like they might have collaborated with a wedding planner who then also was able to collaborate with their stylist and their florist and their literally everything else. Dresses, like...
Because even just maybe they didn't get it completely for free, but even if it's like significant discounts, that still adds up for a wedding. So, it's really not good to compare.
And even just in general, like you kind of touched on it in a way, but like you don't know what their budget is. Like you might be working with a smaller budget, which is so fine, and you can still have a stunning wedding on a small budget, but their budget is 5 times what you spent. And it's just like you can't compare the two.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Obviously, like you can take inspiration.
Yes.
Like I took a lot of inspiration from so many people for my wedding, and everyone does, especially with social media. But don't like try and replicate someone else's wedding as well.
Yeah. And again, it's like that perfect wedding comes in so many different forms because it's you. Like it's almost like handwriting where it's unique to everyone. Where it's like,
that is a good analogy though.
Where it's like you can have two sets of handwriting. Neither of them are ugly or both of them are perfect.
Yeah.
But it's like they look completely different because it's two different people and it's unique to you.
Yeah. I think that like your wedding should be a reflection of you and your partner.
Yeah.
And if you start like fully just copying, I guess, other people's weddings, it kind of loses that in a way. Like, we've spoken about it a lot, is like one of the first things to do when you're planning your wedding is sit down with your partner and think about like what is most important to you two, like the two of you, and try and do that like without this outside noise of what other people are doing at their weddings. Just like literally before you even look at anything else, be like, what do we want for our wedding? And then you can get the inspiration to kind of make it the event, if that makes sense.
And I feel like that's also really helpful in making sure or allowing you to not do things that aren't actually what you would normally do, sort of thing. It's like if you are just copying someone because you're like, oh, it looks cute on camera or in the photos, it looks really like cutesy and all that kind of stuff. But then it's like, I would never wear a bow on my hair normally. Or, you know what I mean? Like something like that where it's, I think we touched on this in another episode about trends, where it's like, don't pick something just because it looks good or it's trending. And then realizing after the wedding being like, why did I do that? I would never normally have picked something like that. So I feel like this helps cancel that out as well by not completely replicating someone else's wedding.
I don't know how many people this will apply to, but like a champagne tower.
Oh yeah.
Like lots of people don't like champagne. So like, yes, champagne towers look phenomenal and they're like so much fun. But if you don't drink champagne,
don't do it.
Don't do a champagne tower. Like you can do it with something else.
Espresso martini.
Well, or you could even do like, if you just want to be like basic, or not basic, I shouldn't say basic, but like just pick your favorite drink. And if that's like a vodka soda, you and your partner love like
Coke Zero
or vodka soda or something, like do it with that. It's like you still kind of get the vibe and the fun of it, but it's actually you and not just like, oh, well, we've seen people do champagne towers, so we have to do a champagne tower.
Yeah. Okay, our next reminder, enjoy the process of planning your wedding, which I feel like wedding planning can be very stressful. It can be tough, especially when you're working full time.
Yeah.
You can have moments where it could be quite overwhelming and get really flustered. So just try to always keep in mind that it's a once in a lifetime experience. You're here to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
It's about love. It's about marrying the person you love, and it'll all work out okay. Yeah, and if like something doesn't work out with like you don't get the vendor you think or you've originally wanted, usually in most cases it works out for the better, where it's like it wasn't meant to be and you end up with someone even better. So just let the universe do its thing.
Yeah. I like to live by the phrase, the motto, life happens for me. And it's kind of like you said, if something doesn't work out and your first choice for your vendor, their date is booked up, or your photographer, anything like that, life happens for me. Like it's happening for a reason. There is something better out there that like I'm going to find, you know, especially if it's kind of like you've had your heart set on this one specific thing since before you even got engaged. I know that we do that a lot of the time. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. Like you haven't even explored your options yet. Like there's so much more out there that could be so much better than what you're thinking. I also think it's really important to try and use wedding planning as like a time to connect with your partner. Because I think especially as women, like when you've been dreaming of your wedding potentially for your whole life and it's finally here, it's easy to want to take control and just like, oh, well, I've always dreamed of having like this or whatever it is. And not to say that you can't have those things, but get your partner involved. Like it's their wedding too. And maybe they have, maybe they haven't, like, but they might have a picture in their head of what they want as well. And you want to be able to honor that for them also.
And I feel like on that same note as well, I feel like this can open up a really interesting discussion about that partner's involvement, in the sense that I know there are some partners out there who could not give any like care in the world about being involved in the process. And I think maybe it is important to have a conversation with them before you start, because if you're expecting them to put in a certain amount of effort or time into wedding planning and then they just don't, because they don't really care that much and they're happy for you to do it all, but then you want them to be more involved, it's like just setting the agreement, or understanding you're on the same page as your partner in terms of how much each of you are doing, or if there are certain things you absolutely want to do together, then it's like make sure your partner knows that, because maybe they just don't realize or something. Like some people just, I guess, don't think about this would mean a lot to them if I came along to this, or
well, even like in saying that as well, it can feel like a chore for that person, like well, I don't really care about like that, so make it a date. So like Rosie was saying they went out and just had like fun date days when they were wedding venue shopping. And it's like, make it a fun thing that you just get to spend the day together and like think about, like this is where we're going to get married, and like really sit in that feeling together and try and make it a fun experience, rather than like, like we've got to find a venue today and it's going to be so hard and we've got 5 places we've got to be at. It's like, try and like make it fun.
But if you look at it from the perspective that you're going brunch hopping, that's
like,
way more fun.
Or like on a winery tour.
Winery tour, way more fun.
I think it's also really important to try not to let wedding planning consume you, because it can be a lot. But when you really think about it and you kind of flesh it out, you don't have to be doing something wedding planning related every single day. And like, you probably really don't need to be, unless you're maybe in the last month of wedding planning. Like if you're still 12 plus months out from planning your wedding and you've got all of your like big vendors booked in, there's not much really for you to do. Like you don't need to be letting it take over everything. Just think about what needs to be done. Like we've said, we've had like our wedding planning timeline and stuff. Have those dates in there where things need to be done by, and make sure you kind of stick to that. But you don't need to every single night be like, okay, stressing, like now I need to do this and now I need to do that. Like just take it easy, let it flow, like it's all going to happen. And I feel like if you let it take over like that, it can be really easy to feel like the high of getting engaged, and then you're planning your wedding, and then the wedding comes, and then after that it's like like nothing. And like that's when you can really get that like post-wedding blues that we've spoken about a fair bit, where it's just like this, even though it's not a low, it's just this kind of lull in like, what am I meant to be doing now? Because for the last nearly 2 years potentially, you've been leading up to this one day
big moment,
and now it's gone. Whereas if you like ease into and like just enjoy that wedding planning process, I feel like that is just going to help you kind of ease out of it on the other side as well.
And just remember that it really just comes down to spending time having fun with your partner, and exploring all your options like we said, and finding a balance that works with everything, and compromising with your partner, finding something that is perfect for the both of you. Reminder number 4 is to stick together on your wedding day. And this goes for the wedding planning process as well, is like just stick together. I think, we kind of know one of the biggest things that people regret after their wedding is they feel like they didn't spend enough time with their partner. And you kind of want to try and plan as much as you can
to avoid that feeling.
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't matter how much you plan for that, you're probably still going to feel like it. And I think the reason for that is because there has been such a big build up to this one day. It is only one day. So like you can only spend a limited
amount of
time with your partner or with your guests or anything like that. And it can be easy to like feel like it's going to last forever. But unfortunately,
Sad.
it's sad, but it doesn't. And so like if you plan for it to be one day, I feel like that is also going to help you try and switch the mindset from like feeling like you haven't spent enough time with your partner to like, oh, actually, like I spent pretty much all day with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah. And then it's like, I feel like maybe scheduling in those little pockets of time where it's just the two of you can also help. Just even though if you are together for most of the day, greeting people and doing whatever, those little moments alone throughout the day can make you feel like you spent more time with each other. Yeah. In the moment, just the two of you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that if you can try and do that like outside of your formalities, because it's easy to look at, say, your day of timeline and be like, oh, well, we've got the ceremony and then we've got the photos afterwards and then we're sitting down for dinner. We've got our first dance and the speeches and then like, you know, whatever else there might be. But afterwards, and I mean, this is my experience anyway, after the wedding, that doesn't feel like it was quality time because you are kind of with other people.
Yeah.
Like I wish for us, I wish we'd had someone say to us, for example, at some point during our reception, we went and got some more photos done, like flash photography, after it had gotten dark. And I wish that our like photographer and videographer said, now guys, just stay here. Like you don't have to go back to the party right now. Like just stay and like relax, just the two of you. Because after that was done, we just went back inside and like that was it. And I'm like, yeah, like I wish we just
even just 10 minutes.
Just 10
that's all we need.
Yeah. Just like little pockets like that.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of time after the cocktail hour before you go into the reception. Yeah. Just like go off and spend 10 minutes together and then
or like if you're changing your dress halfway through the reception, like get your partner to help you get changed. Yeah. Instead of your bridesmaids. Yeah. Get them to do it. And it's like a little fun like, ooh. Outfit change.
Yeah, like just little things like that I think is just going to make all the difference. I like to say as well, basically tie your hands together for the day. As much as like it's a party and you're there and you want to see your guests and everything, it's your wedding day. Like you want to spend time with your partner and just do everything together. Greet your guests, dance, eat, drink.
Cut the cake.
Everything.
And finally, our last thing to remember is remember why you're actually getting married and that the little things don't actually matter in the scheme of things. And I guarantee your guests probably aren't going to notice or they're still going to have a great time even if something goes wrong. So, don't get too caught up about little things if you're expecting something to be a certain way and then it was a little bit different because the only person it's going to affect is you. So I mean I think we've touched on this in another episode as well where it's like you can't control what everything else or everyone else is doing. You can't control outside situations. The only thing you can control is how you react and that's going to be what determines your mood on the day.
And I also feel like if things do go wrong, and we've mentioned this before about having like a dedicated person who is like your drama.
Quality control.
That's the word. Like you're allowed to be oblivious to whatever issues go wrong on your wedding day. And then if you have to deal with it on another day after the wedding, you can deal with it after the wedding. But on the wedding day, you're allowed to be selfish and be like, especially if it's like drama with people or anything like that, you're allowed to be like, I don't want to hear it today. It's not happening. Deal with yourself. I'm going to go have fun. like it's probably the one day where you're like fully allowed to do that.
Do that, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if your friends and family can't respect that,
Drop them.
I'd be questioning that maybe you have a bigger problem to deal with later.
It's gone further than just the wedding.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the people who are around you on your wedding day, they should be wanting to also do whatever they can to make sure you're having a good day.
Yes. Okay. Now, moving on to our next little segment of the day.
Yeah.
We did some polls on our social media, like I said, and I just want to talk about the results a little bit because, I thought they were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So our first poll was, what is your total wedding budget?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just something that we all kind of want to know about people.
Yes. And I feel like in general, or this is a good, or maybe helpful, or what's the word I'm looking for? Reassuring.
Yeah.
Because the people who are voting on these polls are regular people.
Yes.
Where it's like we're not having these influencers who with these blown out budgets, and it's like it's a very realistic view of what people are currently spending and doing for their weddings, which I think can be helpful.
Yeah. So our options that we had were under 20,000, and then between 20 and 40, 40 to 60, and 60,000 plus. And I thought this was pretty surprising, even like as myself knowing about weddings, was that the most popular vote was 20 to 40,000. And like, I always thought I had a very small budget. Yeah. But it turns out it was average.
Yeah, right.
So like, yeah, I feel like I always just assumed. Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing. Like we were just saying, like you can't predict what these other people are spending.
Yeah.
Because I always assumed that people were spending like 60K plus.
Yeah.
But in reality, like most normal people, at least like of our following, our community is between 20 and 40,000, which is very reasonable. Yeah. I feel like.
Yeah. That's what I would expect in this day and age with how much things cost. That's how much I would be expecting to pay. Yeah. For, just a kind of pretty regular sort of wedding. That's nothing like crazy, you know.
Our next question was, did you or will you go over your budget? So we had nope, we're under budget, strictly sticking to it, a little bit, and way over. And the majority of people were a little bit over, which I also feel like is quite normal.
Yes, I agree.
I feel like unless you're a like type A budgeting legend, it's very normal to go over budget. Yeah. For like lots of things, not just weddings.
Yeah, because like things pop up and you end up seeing things where you're like, you didn't know something existed, and then you're like, oh, I want that.
Or even like, even like, oh, I didn't know that like I had to do this. Yes. Whatever it is. Yeah. Like just not realizing, that there's another charge that you weren't aware of to begin with. And only 10% of the people who voted are under budget, which is, I feel like, reassuring.
Yes.
Our next question is, how many guests did you have? So we had under 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 200, and 200 plus. And our most popular vote was 50 to 100 people with 46% of our voters.
Which again, I feel like that's what I would expect as well.
Yeah, same. I feel like it's very common for like a 80 person wedding. The next contender was 100 to 200 with 30%. Yeah. But surprisingly, I mean, it's not like a huge pool of people that we're obviously polling. But I thought it was surprising that of that, 29 people have 200 plus. Yeah. Like, I just feel like that's a lot. Yeah. Like a lot of people to have big weddings like that. Big weddings,
yeah. I feel like the like massive families with like, like they're the ones that end up going over 200. Yeah. It's like you've got all the family members plus partners plus friends and family.
Yeah. Next up is, what category did you spend the most on? We had venue, catering, photography and videography, and any other vendors. And the top runner, I think this is unsurprising, is venue with 51% of the voters. And yeah, I think that's like very, very common.
Yeah.
That the venue is pretty much the most expensive, especially if your venue does your catering.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yes.
It would be interesting to see, like, because next up was catering with 33%. Like, of those people, like, I'm assuming their venue isn't catering for them.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see, like, how much their venue then was.
What
and
it
what
costs.
it includes
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And then our last question was, which expense was most surprising? And we had venue, catering, pretty much the same, photography, videography, or something different. The top for this was photography and videography with 46% of our voters. But we also had 12% of people said something else. Most common amongst this was florals, which is a big one. Like,
Yes.
we've spoken about that a lot. Like, you see so many people with these big extravagant floral arrangements, and it's like
Very expensive.
very, very, very expensive.
Especially for something that dies 3 days later.
Yeah. Yeah. The next things that kind of popped up a couple of times were the DJ, music, MC, that kind of thing, and dresses. But yeah, florals didn't really surprise me that came up as like a surprising expense.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the kind of final element of our episode today, where we have a proposal diary story for you, which someone from our community submitted. This is their proposal story. So, we thought we'd end on that because it's becoming a weekly thing.
It is.
We love sharing your stories.
Yeah.
All right, so my partner had my ring since December and didn't propose until March, waiting for the perfect moment. We went to Monkey Mia for Christmas with my family, got my nails done, all excited. Nope, no ring. He felt like it wasn't us, not our home. We wouldn't get engaged in public.
That's fair.
Yeah, fair enough. February, my birthday, he had the ring in his pocket all weekend while camping. He took me to a remote beach 10 kilometres north of South Lefroy Bay on the Ningaloo Reef. On the Ningaloo Reef. Already set the camera up, but then noticed there were little crabs all over the beach and they were eating baby turtles out of their eggs. Oh my goodness.
God.
Oh my goodness. He put the camera away and I cried all the way back to our camp spot.
I feel like I would be the exact same if I'm seeing little baby turtles getting eaten.
Poor things.
Day ruined.
The week later, we went back up the coast. I had forgotten all about getting engaged as he wanted a spontaneous trip up the coast. We drove for about 3 hours, 4-wheel driving and getting to a beautiful spot where we stayed at a lot. He had it ready and someone pulled up, so he said, "Come on, we're moving." I just wanted to swim, but got back in the car and drove again. Another hour driving, we pull up to another beautiful spot and we actually stayed at this one for our first dates. Oh, it was a spot we actually stayed at for one of our first dates.
That's cute. He gets all his fishing stuff ready and says, "Come on." I say, "No, I want to chill after driving for so long." A valid complaint. Finally, I decided to get up and go with him. He hands me his rod and I start fishing, but there were turtles and stingrays, so I didn't want to catch them accidentally. So he said, "Go shell looking." Can I just say, there's so many turtles in this
I know.
story.
I love this.
I feel like we need to go to Western Australia.
Look at turtles.
I'm looking at shells, and as my back is turned, he's thrown the Cullen box down the beach and it's nearly rolled into the water like a metre from the shore.
That's a first.
That's a first, yeah.
I like it.
I've eventually noticed this odd-shaped shell down the beach and said, "What's that?" He said, "Go check it out." I started to walk, noticed the Cullen green colour almost instantly and was so shocked. I turned to say, "Hurry up." And he was kneeling with the ring in his hand. He started by saying my full name and I've said, no, 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 no. And he stopped and questioned why I was saying no. I was like, no, yes, keep going. After I finally said yes a million times, I screamed, put it on my finger. Afterwards, we got up and he said, your cousin is hiding in the bush taking pictures. I couldn't care less. I was so overwhelmed and happy. It was the best day ever, exactly our relationship, just us two, a remote beach in Western Australia.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
So
Love
sweet.
that.
Thank you so much for sending that in.
Yeah.
If you guys want to share your proposal on the podcast, we'll have the form in the show notes. So definitely send it through. We would love to hear from you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Save the Date podcast. We hope you learned something new. And if you're currently planning your wedding, congratulations, good luck, and have fun.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow or subscribe and leave us a review wherever it is that you're listening.
Make sure to come and connect with us on our socials at the Save the Date podcast and join our Facebook group, the Save the Date community. We hope you have a wonderful day or night, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Bye.
Bye.